new faces out there. You have some guys who've returned. Just what's your overall take? I guess about halfway into the spring at this point.
Yeah, a little more, a little more than halfway at this point. It's been a fun group to work with. Obviously, there's some pieces that we're going to count on this season that aren't going through spring with us, and it just means more opportunities for other people, new faces, young guys. We brought in some veteran players that have a ton of experience, and that's been fun to work with. They're kids that maybe haven't done all the things we do in our system, but they play a lot of football, and so that base of football gives them a huge advantage learning our system and contributing.
Yeah, Brady Wilson at center is one of those guys. How has he come along at not only understanding what you guys are doing, but all the moving parts at center that he has to be responsible for?
Yeah, I think Brady's probably the best example of it all. He started 30-some-odd games as a center. And Brian Stevens, he was a super talented athlete, an incredibly smart kid, but he had never played center until his third game here. And so a lot of the things that came up were new, and Brady's just so natural at doing some of the things that the center position is required. The communication aspect, passing some of the twist games, and you can just tell he's done it thousands and thousands of times. So he also played. He had 4 O-line coaches at UAB, so he's used a lot of different terminology and been in a bunch of different systems for different coordinators or head coaches. So he's picked it up incredibly quickly, asked very, very good questions, and then you give him feedback, and he's able to take it and apply it.
Makes sense.
You go, Greg, but
Chris, go. I figured you could jump in.
yeah. Well, what about some of these in-between guys, the not the freshmen, the not the veterans? How do they get work in the spring? How can they help your depth? I'm thinking of guys like Cole Server and Grant Ellinger. They're younger, but they've also been here before.
Yeah. Well, Grant's out with he had off-season surgery on his shoulder. So he's a guy just working on getting bigger and working on his body. Cole's going through spring for us, and he's getting opportunities by the bushel. And he's had some really good practices. He's had some not some great practices, and this is a huge spring for him to make a jump. And we've kind of explained to him what we need to see for him to be able to be in the 2 deep and contribute and travel and get on the field for this team. And he's working hard. He's coming in and getting extra time and watching tape. I just walked by the O-line room. He's in there right now watching tape by himself. So happy with his efforts, and he's coming along quite a bit this spring.
Coach mentioned yesterday the outside zone stuff that Brady looks comfortable doing it. He just kind of has a natural feel for it. Are you seeing that from what you're looking for out of that particular scheme? Yeah,
so the center is a huge piece of that scheme. A lot of the challenging blocks are going to be at center, and it's a very feel-oriented scheme. And they didn't run a ton of it last year at UAB, but earlier in his career he ran quite a bit and expressed on his visit that. I love that scheme. I've got a high comfort level. Some of the guys that they brought into UAB didn't feel the same way, and so we didn't run it as much. So once we got into spring practice and kind of led with that as our first scheme, you could tell how comfortable he was and how productive. He's got a great feel for when to climb up to a backer, when to shove a defensive tackle, and those are things that come with time. He's got time on task already.
Where's Kevin Wigington at? I know he played a lot at Michigan State, didn't play as much at Illinois. Mm-hmm. Where's he at, just development-wise, and where do you guys have him lining up?
Yeah, so he's playing left guard for us this spring. He's just a really, really mature, very bright, incredibly smart kid, loves football. And I think he's excited, he's going to have a real opportunity here. When he was leaving Michigan State, we evaluated his tape, and that wasn't a big need for us at that time. But certainly was familiar with Kevin when he hit the portal this year from scouting him the year prior. And then you talk to him and you get to know him. You're thinking, I think this kid can come in and help us, but this would be a fantastic kid to have in the room either way. And he's probably surprised us. He's been a better player, moved better. He's a huge person. So we're running, like you said, we're running wide zone where you got to get out and sprint, and he's doing a great job with it. But as a guy that's energy is infectious, asks great questions, is picking up the scheme super quickly, and is just a true veteran presence in the room.
I was going to say, when you're recruiting a player who had started earlier in his career but didn't play the most recent season, you have to do extra digging to kind of find out why that was, and do your homework to make sure you get what you think you're going to get.
Yeah. And, I think we had some touch points and some sources with Kevin that were good sources of information for us. That's always, in the portal world, that's always a challenge, right? If you don't have a reliable connection, then you're taking, the kid's, course of events or his story on it, or the coach's, and sometimes it's hard to really get to the truth. But yeah, you love to look at everybody's who's coming in and say, okay, Brady Wilson started the last 37 games at this position. Here we go. But that's not how the portal works. A lot of these guys are looking for a new place for a reason. And Kevin was just looking for an opportunity. Illinois was not a great fit for him. He committed there, and then they brought in, a couple other guards right after he committed, and never really got the opportunity he was promised.
Gotcha. How's Drake Metcalf doing? I see him out there, maybe in the green jersey.
Yeah.
How's he doing? And are you excited to have him back around, playing again?
Yeah, you probably hear him out there too. He almost never stops talking, which is a good sign when he was struggling coming back from the Achilles. That you knew he was having a tough day when he was quiet. He's a loquacious young man. No, he brings a ton of energy. He's got a high level of investment for a kid that's not going to take a rep this spring. But he's in our drill work. He's progressing towards being fully cleared for training camp and to train in the summer. He's running. He's lifting his lower body. He's jumping. So a big part of it is that's a significant injury. Is just kind of we are intentionally taking it very slow with him. And working to instill as much confidence as we can into him that, hey, look, this thing is solid. The doctor put some serious reinforcements in this thing when he sewed it up for you. And you just got to get back to where you trust this and get back to the athlete that you were prior to the injury.
With Foley, Josie, Steen out, I know I saw Mills out too, and Wyatt. Can you find guys who are taking advantage of the extra reps, and who's kind of benefiting most from playing a little more than maybe they would have had those guys been available?
Right. Yeah, I think every single repetition's an opportunity for somebody. We're gonna have 5 linemen out there on every play, at least. And so those guys get the chance to get better. But, I mean, the name that comes to mind would be Ben York. He ran with our first unit. He was our right tackle with our first group yesterday. And, some of those other guys are back. I don't know if Ben gets that opportunity. So he's going up against some really talented pass rushers on our first unit defense. As a redshirt freshman, that's great experience for him. He had some really good reps, and then he got his butt kicked on some things, and I think both of those type of reps are great learning opportunities.
With the
go ahead,
Chris. Sorry.
Who else do you work at center with live reps? Like right now, who can take a live rep at center?
Yeah, Noah Hartsoe is back. So he obviously injured his ACL in the spring game last year, so he was back and cleared for spring, which has been great because he's taken all those second-team reps. And Will Rosen is a walk-on from Richmond who, prior to this spring, had never really played center. We gave him the opportunity to hop in there, and he's given us some really good reps.
Philosophy-wise, like if you have more depth, how do you like we always hear defensive line just roll them.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that on the offensive line? How do you use more depth if you have it?
Well, I think I think there is probably a bit of a paradigm shift in that. As people talk more about these extended. Hey, you do really well. You're going to end up playing 16 games. It's a longer season. The load on the players. I think if you have depth, play them. And my anticipation, my expectation is that we're going to play a lot more than 5 guys in the opening game. We've got a lot of guys that have earned the right to see the field. There's a bunch more competition that's going to have to occur, but you decide on a starting 5, and the old kind of model was you stick with those kids. I don't know that that's where we'll be in the first game. I think we're going to be continuing to work to find our best group, and part of that is getting guys opportunities in game to show us what they can do.
Do you go into that with, I don't know, third series we're going to rotate?
Yeah.
Do you have to have like a plan? Or
you have to. Well, okay. My experience is because you get caught up in the game, you get excited about what's going on. I don't want to have to worry about, hey, you're going in at right tackle. So I have those conversations at least a day out, 2 days out, and say, all right, in the third series you're going to go in at right tackle, you're going to come out. Here's why. You're going to kick over to left guard, whatever. I have to have that set in stone and have those conversations. And usually it's about a day out from the game. So you know who's healthy, who practiced well, sit them down, have the one-on-one conversation, and explain why we're doing what we're doing. And generally speaking, guys, hey, I want to play the whole game. Well, that's great, but that's not – this young man deserves an opportunity as well. So, and I think it's important to do that early in the season, knowing you're going to need guys, and you're going to want some guys with some experience to go in that third or fourth game when you have an injury.
Just one more for me, that pass protection-wise, I know at times it was a struggle this past year. How are you feeling? And do you have a commonality when you went back and looked at why there were some struggle? I know it's not just the offensive line, but do you have a commonality when you went back and looked at last year?
Yeah, I think, that was the first thing we studied. We got back in the off season, your first day, you do self-scout, and we started with the SAC tape and the TFL tape. So not a great first day. You could start with your explosive plays or your touchdowns, and that's not what we did. But I think it was important for all of us to see, okay, when you watch them all together, what really happened. And we can grow immensely as protectors from a technical standpoint and utilizing, some of our schematic things, but everybody's involved. There are bad routes that force the ball to come out slower that causes the quarterback to get hit. The quarterback not throwing from the place he's supposed to be throwing is a huge factor in protection. And then I think there's a sense of confidence that comes with early in the season, protecting the quarterback pretty well. Ball's getting out quickly, and you're, doing well statistically in that regard. And then later in the season, I think some of that confidence was eroded because of performances. So we've evaluated everything from, how we're teaching the protection to what protections are called. Are we moving the launch point enough for the quarterback to help the offensive line? So we're doing some different things here in this spring that I think has been really beneficial to our guys. And these quarterbacks have bought in that they're a huge part of that protection. So not only being able to change it and adjust it with their calls, but getting that ball out of their hand on time is a huge benefit to the guys blocking for them.
Makes sense.
How does Brady do with the calls part?
He's great. He's super smooth, super clean. Again, he's done it for years and years and years. And part of his visit when he came here to see if can you be the center here in an offense where this guy's got to really operate and he's got to set the table for everybody else was, I installed how we do some things in protection and then gave him a quiz after. And about halfway through it, the recruiting people came in to get him to go to something else. He said, hold on, no, I've got, I'm 8 questions in, I got 100%. I'm not leaving this thing until the quiz is over. And that's where, as a coach, you're going, all right, this guy could definitely come in and run the show for us. And he has. And you can tell he genuinely enjoys having that control and being able to make those calls.
Just a big picture question. The entire staff is back from this past year to this year. What's the benefit to that kind of continuity and keeping everybody together? What are you seeing this spring that says, oh man, it's nice, to be able to work with some of these guys again?
Yeah, there's a massive benefit to shared experience, especially when you're working on kind of intricate plays and schemes of being able to say, hey, you remember that 2 years ago we ran that against Maryland, and everybody in the room goes, yeah, that was that motion and this, and the context of having shared that amongst each other, I think, can be really, really efficient. And I think we've got a better picture of who exactly we want to be offensively this year than at any point since I've been here. And, that comes from successes that we've had together and failures that we've had together, and being able to go back, watch the tape, do the self-scout, and say, all right, these are the things that we did well. Let's evaluate these new pieces, these new guys we brought in. Do they do them well? Okay, that's a double hit. And let's move forward with those things. So we've been really, really efficient in that regard this spring, and that only comes from having worked for a couple years with people. One of the most challenging things of being a new staff with a bunch of new pieces all together, and it's hard to get everybody speaking the same way, on the same wavelength, and it's because you just haven't been through it together.